Hello friends, I'm Akash, and this is your News of the Week for the week of January 22nd to January 28th, 2023. Let's take a look at our first story of the week. A series of 4 mass shootings throughout the US and Israel have resulted in the deaths of at least 30 people and have caused injuries to 13. On January 21st, 11 people were shot dead and 9 people were injured at a dance studio in Monterey Park celebrating Chinese New Year by a 72-year-old gunman who died in a standoff with police the next day. On January 23rd, a shooting spree occurred at 2 farms in Half Moon Bay, California, killing 7 people and injuring 1 before authorities captured the 66-year-old gunman. In the early hours of January 24th, not long after the one we just talked about, a 21-year-old killed 3 people inside a convenience store in Yakima, Washington, and was found dead by police several hours later. And on January 27th, 2023, a 21-year-old Palestinian gunman killed at least 8 Israeli civilians and injured 3 other civilians in a synagogue in East Jerusalem before being killed by police. All of these attacks are tragic and heinous, and it's honestly hard to believe that all of them happened in just 1 week. I stand with the families of the victims, and I believe that we can stop these mass shootings and attacks like this from happening in the future. Let's take a look at our next story of the week. On January 19th, 2023, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Arden unexpectedly announced her resignation from office and was succeeded on January 25th by former Minister for COVID-19 response, Chris Hipkins. Former Prime Minister Arden stated that she had faced occupational burnout and no longer had enough in the tank to serve as the leader of her country. She also addressed her family, expressing her desire to spend more time with them. Arden was elected Prime Minister of New Zealand in 2017 and was praised for her response to the 2019 Christchurch mosque shootings and the COVID-19 pandemic, becoming one of the only Western countries to successfully contain COVID-19. Given this track record, her resignation was considered a surprise decision by many, especially as the next New Zealand general election would be coming in October. An election was held to determine the new leader of her Labour Party this week, and therefore the Prime Minister of New Zealand. And the Minister of Health and later COVID-19 response during the most important stage of the pandemic, Chris Hipkins, was elected unopposed as leader of the Labour Party. Arden tendered her resignation from Prime Minister on January 25th, 2023, and Hipkins succeeded her as leader of the Labour Party and therefore Prime Minister of New Zealand. So we'll have to see how the new Prime Minister, Chris Hipkins, will be running New Zealand from here on out. And now let's take a look at our last story of the week. On January 7th, 2023, Tyree Nichols, a 29-year-old African-American man, was beaten to death by police in Memphis, Tennessee after being pulled over for reckless driving. At the start of this altercation, the police officers on the scene used pepper spray and fired tasers at Nichols before he attempted to flee. The officers caught Nichols again and this time began to beat him repeatedly. 3 days later, Nichols died of his injuries. After the death brought widespread condemnation for the actions of the police officers, the Memphis police fired all these 5 police officers who were involved in this case, and criminal charges were pressed against them. But then, the Memphis police chief stated that there was no visible evidence of reckless driving, the thing that could have led to Nichols' pullover. But also he stated that it didn't mean that there was no cause for being pulled over. So this seems a little bit off, but then something big happens. The Memphis Police Department decides that they are going to publicly release the footage of the beating and the entire events that led to Nichols' death. Yeah, that actually happened, and this brought further ire and controversy to the whole situation. Protests have spread throughout the country as a result of this series of events. My heart goes out to the family of Nichols, and I hope that situations like this can be averted in the future. And that is all your news of the week. for the week of January 22nd to January 28th, 2022. Thanks so much for watching. Love you, Akash.